My friends, we're beginning. So I'm going to post the link. There we go. If you want to join, please come on out. We're talking about First Samuel chapter 4. Hopefully I will. Is this real? This cat really wants to be a part of this chat. It's as soon as I start talking. Okay, you got 5 minutes, and then I'll see you here to talk about First Samuel. Isn't that right, Humphrey? First Samuel. My friends, my humor has been humored in that Cassandra has labeled herself Cassandy because of a joke I made last time. My humor has been humored.
Way to go, Cassandra.
I warn you, I am incorrigible. So look out about encouraging me. Hello, Cassandy.
Hi.
And Sandy. It's great. It's great. Thank you so much. I feel seen. Shalom Aleichem. So, Cassandra, do you have Raffi? Is Raffi an international thing, or is that just a Canadian thing?
I don't know what it is, so.
Okay.
It's not even recent, is it?
Raffi's like a children's singer, like that I grew up with. Yeah.
Is he current? Like, still?
Hello, Adam. I think he might be dead. I wouldn't be surprised. But he was like, He was like baby beluga and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I got some house cleaning before we get to the text. So this is going to be the house cleaning. A group of people I'm organizing. I'm thinking we'll do it as a stream. We're going to talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh coming up soon on this channel and how it pertains to a couple of biblical things. Okay, so if you are interested in participating in this conversation, one of the ways you can do it is you got to read the Epic of Gilgamesh. So if you just type in the Epic of Gilgamesh full text, the second link, Assyrian International News Agency. This is the version I particularly like. You'll immediately see this image. Look at him. Look at him holding up those lions. You can find the whole thing for free. If you want to listen to it, which might be, you just type in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And this version right here, Ancient Recitations, is read by Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad. With whatever you think of him, he's got a good British reading voice. So he reads the entire Epic of Gilgamesh. This guy, Peter Pringle, he sings sections of it. Look at him there with that ancient instrument. So there's a version of him that's singing from he uses this giant harp. It's where is it? Come on, show it to me.
Is it a lyre or is it a?
No, it's a harp.
It is a harp.
I'm not going to share the sound in case I get in trouble because I don't want to lose it. But look at the size of this thing. So those are strings, and it's like, it's great. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh, how it relates to stories in Genesis, specifically. What are the ones we're mostly going to be talking about?
The flood.
The flood, the creation of human beings, the fall, the snake, Tower of Babel, and the Nephilim. That's all going to be in our conversation. So if you guys are interested, because I have to say, one of the things that makes these Bible conversations so good is that you guys have already read. Like Cassandra, I think it was like 2 weeks ago when you already know what happens to Hophni and Phinehas's kids before it ever came up. So that really helps when we're analyzing a text that you already know where it's going. So the biblical literacy of the people who have been a part of this Bible study has helped so much. And I'm hoping to talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh with that kind of background. So I know I'm getting Jason and Michael to already read it. So if you guys are interested, yeah, I think you'll just, even if you don't become part of the chat, you might just get more out of the conversation. It's good too. I like it as the story. Okay, Jan God is saying, I can't wait until the Epic of Gilgamesh becomes part of the Disney IP catalog. Look, I do want this. I want this so bad.
Broadway numbers.
Broadway, no. An I Want song. That's I don't know how deep you guys have gotten into Disney musicals, but the I Want song is where someone in a musical literally just says what they want. I want to be where the people are.
What'd be Gilgamesh's I Want song?
I want eternal life, or I want to slay Humbaba, the protector of the cedar forest. So eternal life or killing an ogre, you know, whichever one you prefer. Also, sorry, before we get into the Bible stuff, well, we're still talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh. The people are not described what they look like in this thing. So you may have noticed, okay, what does Humpty Dumpty look like? Describe Humpty Dumpty to me.
I mean, in the drawings, he's always just an egg.
He's an humanoid egg, right?
Yep.
Nowhere in the text is he a giant humanoid egg. Cassandra, when you did this, I interpreted that as you singing it to yourself to, to verify whether or not I was telling the truth. Similarly, in Pictures of Epic of Gilgamesh, you don't know that Gilgamesh is a giant. You don't know that a character named Enkidu sometimes is depicted with horns for some reason. And you don't realize that Humbaba, his face looks like intestines. And sometimes he has do I say it? Sometimes he has a snake for a penis. And like chicken legs, and there's a bunch of stuff that's in there that's not described in the, like, you read the whole thing, you read it over again, you're like, why didn't you include the fact that he's a giant egg? Would the children not be interested in this? My friend Graham is joining us today too. Hi, Graham.
Greetings.
Greetings. I was just talking about how people should read the Epic of Gilgamesh because we're going to talk about it in weeks coming up.
Excellent.
Okay, Hezi says he's not joining because he has a dinner party, but he is sending love. I will accept your love. I accept. Good morning,
However, begrudgingly.
Okay, we're gonna go into the text. I think I've danced around it enough. Unless anyone has anything they want to say before we do. Awesome. Going in. Sandy, you're gonna go first, if you will.
And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to battle against the Philistines. They encamped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. The Philistines drew up in line against Israel, and when the battle spread, Israel was defeated before the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the field of battle. And when the people came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you. Okay, I have said multiple times, I will say it again, that the Ark of the Covenant is a chair. So on the top of the Ark of the Covenant, top of the Ark of the Covenant, this is my depiction of it. Can't really get the lighting good. But you have the two cherubim, okay? You can kind of see it as, I depicted as one of those chairs where the poles are used to carry a king around. How in the text is God described in heaven? God in heaven is described as the Lord of hosts who is enthroned on the cherubim. Right? And then at the top of your Ark of the Covenant, you got your cherubim. Right? So they are kind of saying, we're losing in this battle. How do we make it so? And they define it as Hashem has defeated us today before the Philistines. Right? They put it on God that they lost. So they say, I know what we'll do. We'll bring God into the fight. So they bring the throne of God into the battle. Does that make sense? Or do you guys have any thoughts on that? Sandy, we'll go with you first. That image.
The image, you mean the image of God enthroned on the cherubim? Yeah, I always find that an interesting image. I mean, cherubim are like living creatures of sorts. So, like, is he riding upon their shoulders, or are they of such a shape that he can sit upon them actually, or does it mean something more mythological than that? Or, but yeah. But it's funny because they ask the question, why has the Lord defeated us today before the Philistines? And without even waiting for an answer, they're like, so we'll do this.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And not even that, but it's like, oh, the Lord isn't with us because he let us be defeated or caused our defeat. I know. We'll force the Lord's hand and we'll bring his chair into battle. Gotcha, Lord. You'll have to fight for us then.
What are you going to do now?
Yeah, they really lost the thread there.
Yeah, yeah. Jacob, I'm not going to try to troll you into coming down with the SmackDown. Like, Jacob disagreed with me on part of my interpretation of last week, and I appreciate his disagreement. I'm going to say that. Adam is saying perhaps the wings are spread out for God to sit. That's part of why in my image of it, you can almost see the wings are like the backing of a chair again.
There's Egyptian imagery that kind of looks like that, right? With like winged creatures.
Yeah, King Tut's throne, we found it, and there's winged snakes, which sometimes the word for snake is seraphim. So the seraphs, winged seraphs, will be the divine images too. We've lions with wings, bulls will be used as the armrests of kings. It's a pretty cool image. Sandy, do you have anything you want to add to it?
No, not right now.
Sorry, Cassandra. So confused. Cassandra.
Oh. No, I mean, I like that insight of them bringing him in like I was trying to think of the word, but like people will give you, talisman or something like that. Like something physical to try to change.
Almost like a good luck charm.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the proper word, but yeah, something like that.
Cassandra, did you grow up Catholic? Sorry, this is because you're Filipino and you didn't grow up Catholic? I don't understand. I'm so confused.
I mean, well, this is not the place to talk about me.
Okay, sorry.
Samuel, yeah. But no, not Catholic.
Yeah. I grew up that if you were having problems selling your house, you would bury a statue of Saint Joseph in your backyard. And somehow burying a statue of the saint would make it so that your house would sell faster. It's like it was the charm.
I worked at a Christian book and gift store for a while, and we would have certain Catholic people come in anxiously requesting statues of Saint Joseph for exactly that purpose. They swore by it.
Wow.
How often did they buy them? Like it was common?
Over the couple of years I worked there, I remember maybe half a dozen people coming in for that. So every now and then, but they all had a story of somebody else who did this and their house sold really fast. Some of them had stories about how you were supposed to bury the statue in a certain way if you did it upside down, facing outwards or inwards or something. I mean, like, none of this is like official Catholic teaching, right? It's it's just the fringe of what happens, I guess, you know?
And I remember, Graham, you told me a story where people came into a Greek Orthodox church. Where was this Greek Orthodox church with the money? Am I getting this?
When I was in Israel.
Oh, okay. It was in Israel.
I went into the tomb of the Holy Sepulchre, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, for the tomb of Jesus. And you have to like kneel down to crawl into the space there. You can't stand to walk in. But ahead of me were two gentlemen who had their wallets out and were rubbing their cash all over the top of the stone. That was supposed to be the covering for where Jesus lay. That was a very sickening experience.
Yeah, and the idea is, I think, very similar to this story, where you can. What are they doing? They want their money to have some kind of supernatural blessing to it,
Yes.
and they feel like they can force the hand of God by doing this action, right?
Yeah, I mean, you see this manifest in some attitudes towards relics in general,
Right.
within certain groups of Catholicism and Orthodoxy. I mean, personally, it seems very strange to me. I think the response you would get from a well-informed Catholic Orthodox person is that God doesn't just manifest in some spiritually unseen way, but he works in and through the material realm, and that's kind of part of the point of the incarnation. And so they would see that working of grace through relics as an extension of what it meant for God the Son to take on human flesh.
Yeah, but I also think that it's they would say that the actions have faith behind them. And so it's actually the faith and your faith in God that would be doing this action. Like, and it would be through these mediating objects, but that ultimately God is receiving the faith that the people have. And in this story, we know that Hophni and Phinehas aren't really, they're not obedient people. They are the worst. They are sexually assaulting and stealing offerings that are supposed to be dedicated, and they're doing all these terrible things. So they don't have faith behind their actions. They're just bringing them out because they can, I guess.
Yeah.
Try to manipulate. Any other thoughts before we move on in the text? Okay, we have a reference, Adam. Thank you, Adam, again for some of these references that you're dropping. Around here, some people accept that the humans are not the only inhabitants of the house. So they may have rituals so that non-physical ones consent for the sale. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there for right now. Cassandra, will you read for me now?
As soon as the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel gave a mighty shout so that the earth resounded. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shouting, they said, "What does this great shouting in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" And when they learned that the ark of the Lord had come to the camp, the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "A god has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for nothing like this has happened before. Woe to us! Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. Take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be men and fight."
Okay, this is great. So you can see the image which I introduced of like the chair being as though it's God's chair. That is also how the Philistines interpret it. So this interpretation which I'm giving, this is one of the ways that you can test it, is the Philistines see it as God's presence is now in the camp. A god is in the camp, and these are the gods of the Philistines, the gods that did all these things to the Egyptians. I said this before, and I don't know to what extent Yosef would disagree with me. There's some archaeology that states that the Philistines were essentially funded. The Philistines were funded by the Egyptians, and that there's some kind of role that the Philistines have in connection with Egypt. And Yosef is dropping in for a few minutes. That's great, Yosef, because I just mentioned your name, as they say. And so in my interpretation, if this is true, we can actually see this in the text, that the Philistines are saying these are the gods who struck the Egyptians, right? That essentially Israel being turned towards the gods of the Philistines is like they're turning back to Egypt. And to be defeated by the Philistines, it's like they are being attacked by Egypt. Yeah. Yes, Jacob, I understand this. Right. These chairs were used for pantheons of gods. We can see images of such chairs being used in Egypt for multiple things, and I don't. Yeah, they're Philistines. They don't believe in one god. They believe in multiple. I'm totally fine with that. I don't even look, Jacob. I think you're trying to disagree with me, and that's fine.
So, David, earlier you were talking about like Philistines knew that. I thought you had said they knew that the God of Israel was now, that's kind of like that he has come. But is that what Jacob's pointing out? Is that saying the gods they're referring to are the cherubim that are on the top of the ark? Like, are they saying, oh, look, here come some gods? Like, they're bringing their gods before them so that they will.
Yeah, Jacob is saying I wasn't disagreeing.
Yeah.
I was just pointing out the Hebrew, and then Yosef said I would disagree with you. Yeah, so it could be a variety of things because there's multiple images on the top of the ark. So it could be that these are the idols, the cherubim on the top are the gods, are the you could interpret it a variety of ways, but certainly. Okay, what is Yosef saying? Not funded as part of the peace agreement after many years of being attacked by them. Egypt made a deal to let them settle their holdings of the seacoast for Canaan. Hello, Jacob.
Hello.
My patron and friend.
Just to clarify, so
yes,
what the text is very, very clear in is this is an anti-Trinitarian text, and it's just telling Protestants that they're absolutely wrong, and it has been for the last 2 weeks. And like David can't realize that the text is so incredibly like saying Protestants don't believe in God. So like he ends up twisting everything, right?
Okay, so can you get to the point?
It here first. Protestants are in the Bible.
Yes, God is directly telling Protestants don't make these mistakes. Okay, so
go
first
ahead.
mistake. Yeah. So the first mistake, right? The Hebrew Bible from the beginning to end says sacrifices are not how you get atonement, right? That's not how you repent to God. And that's why last week and this week it's saying, hey, God, our God is not actually sitting on the Ark of the Covenant, right? There's no mercy seat, and that's the whole point of the Jewish Hebrew idea is, yeah, this Ark of the Covenant, it does not contain our God.
Oh, and yeah, no, I agree.
Isaiah, like from beginning to end, is saying a very similar thing. Okay, so like, and that's what I was pointing out with the Hebrew is the Hebrew is very clearly saying, hey, look at these foolish Philistines. They're thinking God is here, right? They're thinking, oh, look, it's another idol. And they don't get it. It's not another idol.
I'm not saying it's an idol.
I didn't say you were saying it's an idol. But at the same time, I think the translation especially doesn't really give you the sarcasm and ridicule. Like this is
Right,
a
right.
text that is making fun of, very clearly making fun of Protestant ideas.
Well, and there is, so this is an Egyptian image. These are Egyptian examples. These are not human beings. These are on these chairs. These are idols being carried from temple to temple. Okay, you can even see on some of them the winged, like the images of the wings on these angelic figures. So there is, I think, deliberately this idea. Again, this is Tutankhamun's throne, winged serpents, the lions, right? Images of serpent, angelic images. This is an image from the time of Isaiah. This is supposed to be a symbol of it's a sun disk. It's an image which is used of the divine, and to the left and to the right are winged serpents, or sorry, serpents, and then some of the images are winged serpents. So this would have been familiar images, and I do think that there's a great importance to the fact that Israel does not make an image to sit on the top of this. It is not made with human hands. That is essential. I think they take some of these pagan symbols, but that they're flipping them by using them.
Yeah.
By having the chair be empty, they're making a huge statement. Would you disagree with that?
No, that is definitely the point. And I just want to point out the Hebrew in verse 8. So, Oy lanu, woe to us, mi yatzilenu, who will deliver us, miyad ha-Elohim ha-adirim ha-ele. Now, notice in the Hebrew, right, from the hands of these mighty gods is like it. It's using so many words to emphasize that these are polytheists. Elehem, another two words that are being used. So there's no present tense of the verb to be in Hebrew. So when you use a pronoun to say to be, you are really emphasizing Elehem ha-Elohim ha-Makim, and it's using plural verbs, plural adjectives. Miad Mitzrayim b'chol makeh b'midbar. Like, you could not in any way be more emphatic in the Hebrew than the way it is.
That they are interpreting it as plural. That's what you're saying.
That these are this is a polytheistic idea. Like it's as if you spent like 5 sentences, because really the Hebrew, like it's just going out of its way.
Yeah. And I would say attached to that as well, Hophni and Phineas, who are the bad guys of the story, who have Egyptian names, as we previously stated. So again, another connection with Egypt. They are acting like God is on the chair. Like to jeopardize the chair is to jeopardize God himself. Right? They are acting exactly in that way, as though this is obvious. Like God gives this as a symbol for them to understand, but God is like, as though God couldn't possibly allow this chair to be jeopardized, because then he is stolen but into the realm of the Philistines. Like it's just
I kind of have to go. One thing I will say about folk religion, I always highly recommend reading Maimonides' introduction to chapter 10 of the Mishnah Sanhedrin. where he gives an analogy of a child being given sweets to learn their alphabet, right? One thing you have to have an accounting for, including with people's folk religion, is there's levels of sophistication and development in human beings. And if someone has a simple faith of burying a St. Joseph statue in order to sell their house, that's still a better faith than no faith. It's just not a mature faith. And so before I go, I just wanted to say, just don't be too critical of people who have that type of faith, if that is where they are at. And then I have to go. Bye.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you. Okay. We're going to continue in the text unless anyone has any comments that they want to make. Okay. Let's just read this last section. Cassandra, can you just finish the section that we were reading?
So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and they fled, every man to his home. And there was a very great slaughter, for 30,000 foot soldiers of Israel fell, and the ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died.
Okay, great. So this is fulfilling what was previously said, that they would die on the same day as a sign of the judgment. And the other bit that I wanted to emphasize here is that it's a dramatic irony, right? Is that because they bring the Ark of the Covenant in, the Philistines fight twice as hard. So it's a horrible slaughter that occurs because they bring the Ark of the Covenant in. They bring it to force the hand of God, but God's hand was against them, specifically against Hophni and Phinehas, who are the ones who did this. So it's it's them. It's that moment in so many superhero movies where the good guy won't intentionally hurt the bad guy, and the bad guy always dies because he's going to kill the hero. That's like an image you see over and over again. And it's like, that's the reason why the bad guy dies. Cool. Are you guys ready? There's going to be a Hebrew pun that Jacob is now missing. So whatever. Let's see if you guys find it funny. I'll show it to you in a second. Graham, can you read for us?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
A man of Benjamin ran from the battle line and came to Shiloh the same day, with his clothes torn and the dirt on his head. When he arrived, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told the news, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the sound of the outcry, he said, "What is this uproar?" Then the man hurried and came and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set so that he could not see. And the man said to Eli, "I am he who has come from the battle. I fled from the battle today." And he said, "How did it go, my son?" He who brought the news answered and said, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has also been a great defeat among the people. Your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured." As soon as he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backward from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died. For the man was old and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years.
Okay, we're going to pause there for a second. So the news comes in. He's so shocked he falls out of his chair, and he's a very big dude. He is heavy, and I think that's supposed to indicate more weight going on his neck when he falls backwards.
Yeah.
Previously, we talked about how he's he was fading in his eyesight. Now he's just straight up blind, right? He's right at the end of his life, and he's blind when he falls. Does anyone want to mention anything before we continue this? Sandy.
Are you telling me I want to mention something?
No. I was just wondering.
It's just interesting that all three of them died right then at that one battle.
Yeah.
No, nothing in
stuff.
particular at the moment.
Cassandra?
Maybe it's just like the kind of way the Bible says things when we read it. It sounds so matter of fact, but this part always does kind of make me laugh.
I'm gonna make
guys, and he's fat.
I'm gonna make you laugh more, but I have to get to the end. Because there is a fat joke in this chapter. There's a Hebrew pun about fatness in this chapter. Graham, do you have anything you'd like to add before we continue on?
I don't think so. Go ahead.
Okay. This I find interesting. He falls at the mention of the Ark of God. He doesn't fall at the mention of his sons being dead. It is the Ark of God where he kind of knows that what he deserves and why he deserves it. So it's the Ark of God that's a greater tragedy to him than even his children dying. Oh, yeah. Hey, see, Don, you're paying attention. It implies he reacted more to the Ark than his sons dying, right? Which is also interesting because previously he was, again, willing to jeopardize the Ark in order to save his sons. So he knows that that's incorrect, but that is what he's done. That's what he did before in not calling them to account. And now that has literally happened where the Ark of God was taken. You think Eli couldn't have told them to stop? Okay. Cassandra, finish the chapter for us.
Now his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant, about to give birth. And when she heard the news that the Ark of God was captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed and gave birth, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the women attending her said to her, "Do not be afraid, for you have borne a son." But she did not answer or pay attention. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel, because the Ark of God has been captured, and because of her father-in-law and her husband." And she said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the Ark of God has been captured."
Okay. Thank you very much. Everyone laughs because they totally got the Hebrew pun. Before I get to the Hebrew pun, any reactions to that last little bit? Okay.
Ichabod, was that the name of his, what, in the Dickens story? Was that the name of his partner? His business partner? Ichabod Crane?
No, Ichabod Crane is the headless horseman. It's the school teacher that comes in is named Ichabod Crane.
Oh, okay.
That is why, look.
Sleepy Hollow, yeah.
I often include a little tiny joke in the descriptions of these videos because that's what I'm like. Okay. So how did I describe it? I said this week, David J Busuttil and friends talk 1 Samuel 4, whose side God is on, and where headless horsemen characters get their names. Okay, so this is the headless horseman. The glory has departed. No, the place name where this battle is taking place is Ebenezer, and that's from that story, Ebenezer. I'm going to show you the joke. Okay, this is going to show you guys the Hebrew joke. So when we discuss, so here we have the man he judged Israel and he was kavod, vakavod. Okay, that's how it describes him as being fat. Okay, kavod. Here is the word for glory, kavod. When we describe the glory of God, we describe him as weighty. That's literally what the Hebrew means, like being of substance, right? The way you could think of it in English is like someone was at the bottom of at the bottom of the ocean reading existential poetry. The guy was very deep, right? Ha ha ha, bottom of the ocean, deep, existential poetry, deep, right? The word for fat and the word for glory is the same word. So the child's name, the glory has departed, referring to the Ark of the Covenant being taken away, that name could also be translated bye to the big guy or goodbye fatness. Okay? So that also could refer to Eli dying. The fat guy is gone, and also the Ark of the Covenant is gone. Both could be described as the heaviness has left. This is the Hebrew pun. I don't know if that's satisfying or not satisfying, but
I mean, I'm satisfied because when I was reading it, usually when they name the child, it has something to do with it. But when she says something about because they died and the glory departed, I don't know. I couldn't get the connection.
yeah,
Because usually it's kind of usually they just name them like whatever happens.
yeah. The first part makes sense. The glory has departed from Israel because the Ark of God had been captured. Okay, that makes sense. That's glory in this one sense of kavod. But then, and because their father-in-law and husband. What about this part? How is that related? It's because literally the big guy's gone. Yeah. Farewell to Fatty or something. I don't know. So Mandy is asking what the website is. If you just type in, so this is biblehub.com/interlinear. If you are just on Google and you just type in 1 Samuel 4 Hebrew, one of the first things that's going to pop up is the interlinear for Bible Hub.
So in Hebrew, do these names sound as rude as they feel when you're translating them?
So it's the semantic range. The way that one of my professors said is, imagine reading Hebrew is like being at a Chinese restaurant. There will be a Chinese menu that is 4 pages long, and there will be an English menu that's 1 page long. So all of the options that the Chinese people can get, they get all the English options, but you don't get all the Chinese options. So there would be, you could use these things as an insult. Anyone who actually named their kids these things would be child abuse. It's no not loved and not my people, but yeah, it's pretty bad. In Hosea, that's one of they have a child named not loved. Yeah. Yeah. Looks like God was away taking care of other business. Yeah. There's a famous Tom Waits song called God's Away on Business. I don't know if I recommend it. But yeah, literally the word in this chapter, the word for him being fat and the word for the glory departing is the same word. It seems intentional, if nothing else. I don't know, Jacob, or any of the Hebrew watchers, does it have a notion of like an insulting heavy? Like, is it just matter of fact, or could it be used as an insult? Like fatty is more of an insult than it is of a description. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe we'll get a response. this also, what is it? Graham C.S. Lewis talks about heaven being heavier. Does that make sense?
More substantial. So, like, what we think are spirits, to us, we think they're insubstantial. Like, they could pass through walls and stuff, so they have less substance. But C.S. Lewis says it's the opposite way. We're the insubstantial thing, and that's why the spiritual things can pass through us. So, like in the Great Divorce, the bus goes to heaven from some sort of purgatory, and the people from purgatory, it hurts to walk on the grass because the grass is so hard, it's like needles, because heaven is so
real, so kavod. It's
so
so
substantial.
yeah.
Yeah.
The substance is greater, not less.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's like kavod could also be like density, substantial. But I mean, we say this like it doesn't refer to the amount of food you eat, but when you speak to a meal being substantial, you mean like it has more to it, right? Oh yeah. I wonder how many people, Dawn is saying, I wonder how many people would have been fat in those times, and if it would have been seen as a character defect. It would be seen as an outgrowth of wealth. It's like only kings and like major leaders are fat, because you just didn't have access to that much food.
I was gonna say, isn't there someone else that dies similarly? I know. I remember was it in Judges when he kills the fat guy and the knife or whatever disappears?
Right in, yeah.
Yeah, Eglon. They lose. Ehud loses the sword inside of him because he's so big. So it kind of makes these jokes about it, and that one has the poop joke, right? Is they hear him dying. It says when he gets stabbed that the dung comes out of the wound. So he's this big guy. He's in the cool chamber and he's going and they smell. I think they smell the poop, and they think to themselves, surely he's relieving himself. So it's again a joke at his expense.
Mm.
Yeah, Jan got is saying eyes of needles and stuff. Yeah, the substance having a difficulty getting in.
I wonder, we should make a list of like humiliating ways to die from the Bible, because it seems like there's kind of a few of them.
Yeah, I'm trying to think some of the really bad ones. Jezebel gets thrown off a roof and then gets eaten by dogs, except for the palms of her hands, it says. Specifically that gets ripped apart. Yeah, all that's left is the palms of her hands. If I'm remembering that correctly. Ahab gets shot by like a random arrow. It's like not even intentional. Someone just like fires like this, not looking, and it hits him because God just wants him dead so bad. Okay. I wanted to connect this with another passage of scripture. Sandy, can you read this bit for us? This is from Joshua. Joshua chapter, am I 5? What am I at? Yeah, Joshua chapter 5. So just read this section.
When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord. Now I have come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped, and said to him, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so.
So this this is an angelic character who is taking on some characteristics of the burning bush, right? Take off your sandals from your feet. So this is a message directly from God that's being sent to him. And when he sees this guy, he appears like a soldier, and he says, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" And he said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of Hashem. Now I have come." So the image is that God is not necessarily on the side of Israel. God is on the side of Israel as long as they are doing what God has desired and wanted. And if they turn away from that, like the image is that the glory can depart. The glory can, there's some conditional elements here. And we see within the story we're going through, people trying to command God, you're on our side or you're in these objects and we can force your hand. And that's why it's so important to constantly take a mode of humility. And I would say that regarding what Jacob said, I think God can accept some level of our faith through these other objects in our weakness. But we so easily are doing it out of pride, where we use these objects to force the hand of God and to move away from humility to be something that we then cling to instead of God himself. And we
Control.
see this. Yeah, go ahead, Cassandra. That's great.
I was just going to say it's the difference between control and trust.
Yeah.
'Cause
Absolutely.
I guess, because I mean, that's what the idea of like everything's a power. Like if you frame everything as a power struggle, because people want certainty and security.
Yeah.
And so they want to have power in some respect, money or political power or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like one of the ways you could think of it, translating it into kind of a more modern idea, is whose side are you on? And he says, I'm on God's side. So then that begs the question, are we on God's side? I think it was it was deemed as very controversial, but Barack Obama's former pastor, he was quoted a whole bunch, and people were really critical of this thing, where he said, "Not God bless America, God damn America." He was saying this thing, and people were like, "Oh, this is so terrible, this is so horrible." But the idea that the pastor was actually saying, to some extent, is a sentiment that I actually kind of agree with, which is this idea of God's blessing, especially in the Old Testament, is linked to relationship. People who have faith in him and who follow after him. It's not just like a blanket, anyone who's here, everything's good all the time. Israel, because of their relationship with Hashem, when they push against Hashem, things go terrible for them. Goes really, really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sometimes this can be the problem with our human relationships too.
Right.
To a certain extent, because it's like,
I love where you're going. Go ahead. That's great.
well, I don't know if I had much more, but I was just thinking about that because, yeah, the aspect of control of like you do this ritual or this thing, and then it's like you get an input and then you get the output automatically. And that's kind of how we interact with stuff like computers, machines. But then, of course, with God, we see there's a constant negotiation. When Abraham asks him to spare, to save Lot, to spare Sodom for 10 good people, he does it. He's like, okay. He negotiates with them. And you see that throughout the Bible. And then, but with each other, we don't always want to negotiate. Mm-hmm. And sometimes maybe even the example, it's kind of like with the discussions around like insults, like people are like, oh, if you're nice to women, you think you're owed something, intimacy, validation, something like that. But then you're dealing with real people, or even like
I bring the flowers, therefore you must forgive me, or whatever.
Yeah, or like there's also videos of women being like, being upset that when they get asked on a date and the man wants to split it or something like that. Like there's a certain way that they think these things could kind of happen automatically. Like all of these things are taken for granted rather than being a negotiation, a communication of some kind.
Right. Yeah, that's an
And
interesting.
yeah, so yeah.
There, I used to describe. So I skateboarded when I was in high school, because again, punk rock. Very into punk rock in high school. So I found it was very interesting to learn how to skateboard because you ask the skateboard permission of things. Like a bike, you just tell it what to do, but you're not bound to the skateboard. You're leaning and you're trying to figure out what kind of ground you're on. And I had the same experience the first time I was on a horse. Is the horse literally has a mind of its own. Like it has its own brain. It wants to do things. You have to ask it permission. So the first time I was on a horse, it was a retired racing horse. And so I got on and wanted to figure things out. And this thing just took off. And I was, you're pulling, you're trying to do things, but it has a mind of its own and it can do whatever it wants. Right? It will be, if you really pull or you're hitting it or something, it'll be uncomfortable for it. But people who are very, very good with riding and with skateboarding are very, very good at the asking permission of the thing that they're interacting with, knowing how to actually do it, which is a lot more subtle than you want it to be with your bringing the Ark of the Covenant places and saying, you must forgive me because of roses.
And with horses, sometimes there's the attitude of trying to break the animal, right? Try to break it completely so it just does whatever you want.
It's an interesting image because the breaking of an animal is not so that it's broken and can't be used. The breaking of an animal is so that it can be. So there's different images which are used, because sometimes our relationship to God is like a servant where we need to have our spirits broken. But several times throughout Scripture, it is also a companion, a child, a son, right? And that relationship is not one where you're trying to break the spirit. Even this language of Peterson quoted this a lot. The idea that meek refers to those who know how to use a sword but keep it sheathed. The actual idea is the best horses in battle were wild horses that were broken, not tamed horses, like horses that grew up as tamed horses. You needed these horses that had extra spirit because they were wild, but you still need them to be broken, like willing to bear someone on their back, but they still retain the quality of the spiritness. So they need to be both broken and spirited at the same time. That was the best war horse. So in the same way for us, like we do need to become God's servants in one way, but we also need to be the ones who wrestle with him, like both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about that because I think Peterson said something about like how he was saying something about how the biblical characters like Abraham, like men of action or courageous men or something. And I was thinking about that. And I guess you could see with the choices of people that he brings up that there's something like that too. It's like they make a lot of mistakes, but they're not timid really in that way. They're not scared and they stumble forward, but they have that high enough aim that they're still making it. They're making progress towards that thing.
Right. Right.
versus maybe somebody who is too scared to fail. Like, I guess maybe something like Saul or something. Like, he kind of kept messing up because he was, I don't know, he didn't have that, what the other ones had, that kind of like maybe courageousness or something.
Yeah. Yeah, when we get to the character of Saul, I find him so bizarre because David does many of the same things Saul does, but David gets a thumbs up and Saul gets a thumbs down. It's like two people will do something, and when you know, I don't know how to describe it. It's horrible. But when I was like a referee for soccer, you also when you're reffing little kids, you can really see when someone does something intentionally and unintentionally. Like when someone is aggressive and wanted to hurt someone versus no, that was an accident and that's fine. We're just going to move on, kind of a thing. There's some kind of a knowing the heart that's going on.
Kind of Cain and Abel-ish in that sense, like.
Yeah. Jan God is saying, it's not funny, but it sounds like having a relationship with God is like having a relationship with a billionaire bipolar drunk who will pay for your party as long as you remember his name. I'm going to... Thank you, Jan God, for your very specific perspective, because this is important. It's important to have this pushback to get things a little bit more clear, because there's aspects of God which is a king which needs to be respected. But then there's other aspects where he likes that Job is straight with him. And what people don't realize is by the end of the book of Job brings up possibilities like, how about this as a possibility? Maybe God created me because he likes torturing someone. At the end of the book of Job, God says, Job, you are incorrect, right? Everything everyone said is incorrect. But Job's incorrect is good because Job's incorrect is actually in relationship. My wife and I, we were trying to get this play done. It was a play that we wrote ourselves with a group of friends. And we told everyone, look, if you're going to bring up problems, I need everyone to know we are interested in problems if they're things we need to solve. We don't want to hear about problems that are just your excuse for why you don't want to do this. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But we are going to put this play on. And so any problem, we have to get into how we're going to solve these things. That's.
I'm going to say goodbye in your slight breath pause because I have an appointment. But I'll check out the end here. See you guys.
Thanks for coming out, Sandy.
Bye, Sandy.
Andrew, you came in not to be helpful at all, but in the possibility that you might have something to add besides trolling. How you doing? Do you have anything to add?
I don't troll. I don't know. I just don't like lurking, so I just pop on even if I just listen. So no, I didn't hear anything. I don't really have much to add.
Okay.
I'm making breakfast.
That's all right. Oh yeah, California, man. So confusing because it is 2:00 in the afternoon for me right now. Yeah, it's tea time over here officially. Yeah, I'm very happy for parts of these conversations. Cassandra, what do you have to say to what I was saying before about this pushback, the fighting? Do you think? What do you think of what Jan God has said?
Well, what do you call it? In the parables Jesus tells of like the king, there is like a certain aspect where he seems kind of totalitarian and unreasonable almost. But yeah, that's still like, I don't know, like with the what was it? I don't know what you call it, a bookkeeper or something, where he's going to get fired and then he halves everyone's debt in halves.
Yeah.
And then ingratiates himself into other people before his boss kicks him out. Because it almost seems like the guy he works for is supposed to be like kind of bad, like he's harsh and he cares about the money, and then he tells him, does he call him your wicked servant or you good servant or something like that? I don't know. There's something about that.
The guy's commended. The guy's commended.
Yeah. So it seems kind of funny with the way the story kind of sets it up and then the way it ends. I don't know if it's exactly a contradiction. Sometimes I think maybe that's just because that's our perspective is not wide enough.
That's good. Well, and I do think that's very important, because a lot of times the perspective that we have is just missing something. It's like in the conversation between Peter Boghossian and Jonathan Pajot, which happened in the last week, I laughed at a certain part because Jonathan Pajot was trying to get this atheist to follow his logic, and the atheist just went, "Oh, I don't follow you." And I just went, "Of course you don't." Like, the whole point is that you're not following where this is going. In my mind, that was a part of it. Is like there's a conception of God, which the response is a humbling, and that humbling is a fearful relationship. Like, this is a thing that will crush you when you're humbled. But then in Amazing Grace, 'twas a grace that taught my heart to fear, and by grace those fears relieved. So it's both. It's this back and forth, the humbling, which is a terror, and then now we just get past it. And it's like C.S. Lewis describes an interaction between the image of Jesus there, Aslan, and the other animals. It says that they treated him like a cat treats a large dog that they're friends with, because the large dog can kill the little kitten so quickly, but they're running through his legs and they're very sweet with him, because that's not their relationship. It could crush you, but he's not going to. We are, I think I'm going to check in with people unless they have last thoughts. The next section, I think Jan God is going to particularly like, because it is a very wrathful image of God with golden tumors and rats, sometimes translated as hemorrhoids. So Yanni, you're going to particularly like this. That's going to be, yeah. I create pet names for all my friends. So Graham goes by Gramuel, but only by me. No one else calls him as though. Yeah,
that is correct.
Yeah, Gramuel.
Yeah. Just
yeah. Andrew, perhaps one day you will earn a nickname. It must be earned. But Yanni, you've earned a nickname. Graham, do you have any closing thoughts on this section that we went through?
No.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for asking.
Do you think there is a moral to this story that we haven't discussed, or is it just you can't force God's hand?
That you can't, and also don't try. Yeah. That's probably it.
My friend John is upset that he doesn't have a nickname. You're right, I don't. That's Ortega. Yeah. I'm sorry, John, you don't have one yet. You gotta, I don't know, it just happens. I don't think about these things. I say them out of a moment of stupidity.
Yeah. Now John knows where he stands in the hierarchy.
Oh no. Oh no. Sandy, anything that we missed?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, Cassandra, sorry.
Oh.
You writing Cassandra is really messing with me. That has thrown me off, and I don't know what to do now.
Oh. Well, hopefully this isn't my nickname. Actually,
You don't
I
like
just
to
thought it'd be
say-
funny. I just thought it'd be funny to write, but no.
When I was a camp counselor, I gave a kid the nickname Windex because I misheard his name the first time he said it. I was like, everyone was saying their names. I was like, what's your name? And he's like, I was like, did you say your name's Windex? He said, no, I know my name's. I was like, nope, don't tell me. You're Windex for the next week. I just called this kid Windex. I really liked him, but yeah, Windex. Andrew?
Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Andrew,
let's let Andrew talk.
Yeah, would you like to step out of lurking if you have any closing thoughts?
Nope. I was here for 5 minutes. It was pretty great. So, maybe 6 minutes next time.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. This is supposed to be a little bit funny. It's a tragedy in the story, but there's funny puns about fatness. So the fat guy's gone, the glory has departed. And so this is giving, how do you interpret the tone of this book? A major tragedy is happening to Israel, but don't worry, God is fine, okay? God, even if it appears like his throne has been taken, his footstool has been taken, he is still king, and he will still be in control of this. And so this tragedy is going to lead to another story, which is tragic and bizarre, but also will be funny. Jan God says, all the king's horses and all the king's men had to wait for God to build Jerusalem again. Oh, Yanni, I think you're right. And I don't know how our Israeli friends watching will interpret this, but this is one of the things that's put forward in the Torah, is if you follow after God, everything's going to go smooth. Things are going to be great. All the other nations, they will only show up to ask for your very, very wise advice. And if the nation is disobedient, then you will just be constantly surrounded by people that can think of nothing more than destroying you all day long. So,
quite judgment.
Yes. I believe that the Lord has chosen Israel, but there are big questions that have to be answered about which of those situations you think is more correct right now. And what does that mean? What might that imply? What direction are things supposed to go in? Because, and this is for our own lives too, people talk about the blessing of God being on them. And I agree. All the king's horses and all the king's men had to wait for God to build Jerusalem again. Lord, whose side are you on? Question is, whose side are we on? Great conversation. Cassandra, Andrew T, Graham P. It was great to have y'all out.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll be back next week. The conversation on the Epic of Gilgamesh will be at some other random time when I at least have Jason and Michael on. So if people want to join that or just listen, look up the Epic of Gilgamesh. Thanks, guys.
Wait, how much are we supposed to read of it?
I'm going to talk about all of it. Okay, Graham?
Okay.
So Graham actually bought me a copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh. So I know he knows where to find copies. So we will at some point have a conversation about that.
It does happen to be public domain.
It is
pretty much the oldest story in recorded human history. So.
Yeah, so just look it up and type in full text. You can find it read on YouTube or full text. I shared at the beginning of this video. I will share right now the link For if people want a version I particularly like. Is it the most accurate? No, but I like the way it sounds.
That is very important when choosing an audio book.
And choosing poetry.
Yeah.
Choosing poetry, you got to listen. So this is the written version. Okay, that's all. I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye.
Wait, did you post the link?
What? I did in the chat. Should be in the chat.
No.
Okay, it may not let me. Sometimes it doesn't allow certain things. Just look it up. Oh,
Okay.
What does this mean?
Wait, does Jacob stream to Twitch?
I don't know.
Oh, I see what Twitch icon in the comment section of StreamYard.
Oh, I don't know.
He streams way too many places.
Yeah. Don says, just as long as there is no essay assignments. None for now. None for now. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Auf Wiedersehen.